Welcome, everyone, to Vision Untethered podcast, conversations with inspirational visionary leaders. Here, we authentically unpack the biggest learnings and insights in business and in life, and the saboteurs that keep many of us tied down as business owners. Co-hosting with me today is Micah, one of our incredible fractional COOs. My name is Jill, founder and CEO of Savvy. We help business owners scale confidently with a fractional C-suite that delivers immediate results and increased value for growing companies. Our guest today is Darrell Correct me on your last name, Darrell. I don't even know that I've said it out loud before.
That's a tough one. Gschwendtner.
Gschwendtner, thank you. It's a lot of consonants packed into one.
That's right.
Yeah. Darrell is founder and owner of Whetstone Climbing. With nearly 25 years in the climbing world, Darrell has built a life around adventure, discipline, and the transformative power of climbing. From classic Colorado routes to some of the big wall ascents and even expeditions into Patagonia, his journey has taken him across some of the world's most iconic climbs. Today, through Whetstone, which is located here in beautiful northern Colorado, Darrell is creating a space where climbers can connect, grow, and share the passion that has shaped his life. Wonderful to have you, Darrell. Thank you for being here and sharing your journey. Yeah.
Hi, Darrell. I'd love to jump in and ask you a little bit about your origin story. Every founder has an origin story. And so what I'm particularly interested in is when you realized you weren't just building any business, but you were building this business with Whetstone.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll try to be as succinct as I can. But yeah, for me, I started climbing in college, my freshman year. And, prior to that, pretty traditional sports kind of guy, although I kind of also fell in love with skiing and in fact was racing in my first year of college when I started to fall in love with climbing. And so that was a little tricky, but so I guess climbing became such a big part of my life. And at a time in my life, a very pivotal time, that it started to kind of mean so much to me that it was all I really wanted to do. And, I almost barely made it through college. I was, if there was any nice days out and I didn't have an exam, I was climbing. So that kind of became all I wanted to do. And in fact, I did finish college. And afterwards, I just tried to figure out how I could stay in the climbing world, and it couldn't really figure it out. This is in the late 90s. And then kind of fell into the financial audit world. And there were some skill sets that I had that worked well with that. And for many years, that was good, and it was a great job. But eventually, and the whole time, I continued to start climbing. I continued to climb as best that I could. We had 2 kids, and things, got a little bit more complicated to continue climbing. And my current career was becoming more and more unfulfilling to me. It's great for a lot of people, and it was for me. But it just started to, I turned 40, and it was like, okay, well, is this really what I wanted? Is it fulfilling? And again, really the only time I could climb at that point was after the kids were in bed. They were young, and I was going to a climbing gym at that point, and things just started to kind of click that, wow, this sport is continuing to grow much more than it was when I was younger. The climbing gym thing was crazy. So the wheels started turning, and it was just kind of this juncture of, I really wanted to give back and to commit 100% to something that's a new business starting from zero. It just meant that much to me and what it had given to me that I wanted to provide that to others. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool story.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's an inspiring story. And I think one that most entrepreneurs can identify with. Probably something else that we can all identify with is, making mistakes early in business. Is there a specific mistake, something that you overcame that ultimately made you a better leader?
I think in kind of, preparing for this, I reflected quite a bit, and I try to reflect, on a daily basis. And I think, one of the things that a student of is kind of self-awareness. And I think listening, honestly, has been one of the things that I've tried to work on the most. And the more you listen, the more you can kind of let things come to light. It kind of forces you to be put in that mode of listening, and rather than just talking and telling and just doing. So, I don't know if I can do a single instance, but there's been so many things along the way that have that I've learned from and continue to learn from. But I don't know if that completely answers your question, but I'm happy to go into some more detail.
Listening is certainly a great leadership trait, and one we don't see enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any instances that come up or memories you have, Darrell, where that was, there was a key lesson in that? Like, oh, if I listened better, if I just wait, or, before responding, or anything that comes to mind as an example?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, especially, I had, as you guys know, starting your own businesses too. You have a lot of naysayers that are like, wow, that sounds impossible. Or if you do that, remember to do this, or don't, those numbers are too high. And so I think, you have to remain hopeful and unwavering. But I think there were times where I was like, I know that's not how it's going to be. And of course, it was maybe somewhere in the middle. So I think those were some really pivotal times and things that I had to kind of unwind because I maybe didn't listen well enough. Whether that was, hey, maybe you should plan for a different amount of members in the first year, or maybe don't spend on this. And so again, without getting into too many details, there were plenty of those mistakes where I didn't listen well enough. But that very fine line, like I said, with, having the confidence to kind of plow through whatever it takes, and then the reality that you really don't know what is going to happen. It's usually somewhere in between. And I guess tempering that, tempering enthusiasm with what the reality is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some founders become the engine of the business instead of the architect of it, right? So being in it. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what are some of the telltale signs for you that you're too operationally engaged?
Again, I'm definitely a student here, and I'm not quite a teacher. And if you find yourself in the minutia a lot, and saying no to the question, am I using my time as best, and is this the best use and the most highest use of my time that I should be in this task? Is that requiring my highest interest and time? And if you say no to that too many times, you're probably definitely not, you shouldn't be doing it. And I still do that every day, and I'm like, why am I doing this?
Right.
It's important, but so all the time I experience that. And I would say if you find that often, you're probably stifling some things in the long term. Figure out what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, if someone else can do it, and then delegate. And actually, I have done this exercise a few times, but just did it recently to where you basically break down a simple spreadsheet, maybe 7 columns, 6-7 columns, and you write out what it is you do each day. Probably keep 10 things. How many hours? Actually, each week, how many hours you spend on that?
Yeah.
The other column is your hourly equivalent. Add that up across the year, and then ask yourself in the last column, can I continue to afford to do this, and should I? It would be very apparent that you spend 30% of your time doing something you shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a powerful exercise. Eye-opening.
Yeah.
Have you any ahas or findings in that this last go around?
Yeah. One that for me, I'm still, and this is tough for me because I have kind of the auditing accounting background, and controlling costs for any business is obviously critical. And payroll, we have somebody, a service that actually does the payroll, but I'm still the only one that's producing it and sending that information and keeping very tight control over that. And at the end of the day, when I did the exercise, it was like, okay, this takes me 2 hours every other week. That's well worth my time, in my opinion, to continue to have that control, because that's all of our biggest expense for the most part. And I just want super tight controls over that. So that made me realize, because I have contemplated, why am I doing this? It's a pain, but it's so important that I'm like, it's well worth my time to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That can vary depending on who and what other stakes are involved. So
that's right. And you know, we have, our business is interesting that it's very people heavy. We have 40 employees now, maybe a dozen that are full time, but there's a lot of moving parts for a smaller business. And it's not to say somebody couldn't do as good a job as me, but I'm not there yet where I want to let go of the wheel. Yeah.
Sure.
It's interesting. You said you have an outsourced payroll service to some degree. Like, when did you realize that starting to implement some systems, was really help your operational infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, early on, I did a bunch of stuff on my own, and then I had an advisor who was like, "Yeah, you really should not be doing this. It's just not. You're not an expert. This is very important." And so early on, as far as things like payroll, better software, I think we made some good decisions. But right now we have a main operating system that's kind of specialized for the climbing industry that we have been using. And, there's other service providers out there, and some of them are, further ahead than others on improving the processes that we do. And so those are things that, like I said, I'm still learning, and there's a good chance we could take a different route that would improve a lot of things for us. So,
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever felt like your business owns you instead of the other way around? And what has that moment taught you?
Yeah. I hear the word trapped sometimes. And, like I said earlier, I think for me, and I think for a lot of business owners, it's like I try to move away from the word trapped, and it's more of, it's just marriage, right? Like, I feel like it's 100% commitment. There's no going back. And so I feel like if I find myself feeling trapped, that's like a desperate feeling, which I've had before in a different life. And I try to just get away from that. But yes, I do still feel fully committed, and that can be terrifying. But I think I try to reframe it into challenges, and wow, this is very challenging. There's no exit. Like I'm going to bail. So let's find the right tools that we have. And a lot of times that starts with the people. All the time it starts with the right people you have. So I think I try to come back to that. Like, wow, this is stressful. This isn't going the way I want. Again, there's no option to bail. So it's like, well, what are the tools we have? Let's talk to the people. Do we need something else? So that's kind of where I try to go when I like, this is not going right.
Yeah. And maybe in that moment of teaching, it's you're learning then again and again, right? We've never fully arrived at having it all figured out, and we've arrived and everything is as it should be. But there's reoccurring moments where we, like you said, have to lean on the team, lean on the people around you. So I think if anything, those moments it sounds like have probably taught you a lot about not being alone, that you actually are not alone in it. Sure, your name is on everything. It is you that wears the majority of the risk and the weight that you have to carry, but you aren't alone.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you just bring up another good point where, I'm really close with my father. He was a businessman, and still learn a lot from him, but some other advisors and other groups like yourself, and we know some of the same people, and that's super helpful, because when you're at I hate to use the word, well, I'll use it in the traditional sense, that at the top of a traditional organization structure, or at the bottom, if you're the foundation, it does feel lonely because there's only so many things you can. I mean, you can be very transparent, but there's also some things where it just wouldn't be wise to share probably everything. So, you feel kind of siloed. So yes, advisors, groups, your husband, your wife, they can only hear much. So yeah, that's incredibly important. And I think I was more reluctant to kind of use those outlets in the beginning. Maybe because I was also, and in some ways still am very, some information is really confidential and some of it's maybe less than you think it is.
Yeah.
And so I've relaxed a bit there and, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vision is a really powerful tool. And so I think when you mention tools, I'm curious where execution starts to fall apart when it comes to championing a vision, heading toward a vision, and painting that path. What leadership lesson has taught you the hard way how to bridge the two so that execution is matched with where it is you're going and full alignment with your teams?
Yeah, I mean, go back to vision and the start of everything. And it was at that kind of turning point, it was like, okay, you want to start a business, but what is the vision? That took a long time to kind of boil down into what that was. And the same with the mission, the values, and the vision for me was more than, it's something that we'll never really achieve. There's no endpoint. Like we're changing lives for good through climbing. And so that really helped me kind of guide the company. And so whenever I'm feeling, like we're misstepping or whatever, we just say, hey, this is still our vision. We haven't deviated. So that's good. But I think communication, honestly, it happens every day. That's where poor and ineffective communication is usually the root of many of our problems in life. So I think our vision is crystal clear, but execution starts with the plan, and if it's not communicated well or taught well, then it all kind of falls apart. So it's easy to say that and to come up with a plan, but then also execute it well. That's another piece that can kind of fall apart. And then, if you go through the time and energy to communicate well, and then to not actually execute, it's just kind of a big waste of time. So that's definitely happened, and those are painful to realize. Why did we do that? I think sometimes you can, when you realize that, you can go back and say, okay, yes, we've screwed this up a little bit. Let's see if we can pull it back and get back on track. So,
absolutely.
You've gone from like listening, communication, or very important. Like, what's the leadership lesson to get those two and then into accountability and outcomes?
Yeah. I think, to me, to kind of break it down and more simply, is you're either kind of, for me, you either take an ownership mentality or kind of a victim mentality. And that may sound strong, but I think, life is kind of that simple, where you just kind of, you take hold of it, or you let it take hold of you. And I think I try to operate that way. And so I think, the more you can take the ownership mentality, the less problems you'll have. I think sometimes when you have everybody taking the ownership mentality, which is amazing, then you have problems delegating. And so I think that can be tricky, where it's like, I'll do it because I can do it the best. Then that doesn't work either. So I think taking the ownership mentality, but also being able to relinquish some of that is, hey, you can take that. You're going to do a great job. And that frees me up to do something more that I should. So,
it goes back to your optimizing your time exercise.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not the quantity as much as the quality of what's in your ownership, what's in your command, and those in your sphere of leadership as a team. Elevating others is a part of that. You own the continual elevation and leadership development of those in your care. You own that, and a big piece of that is good reflection on where am I spending my time? Where are we all spending our time? Are these the most important uses of energy and time? And that's constantly evolving. Yeah.
It kind of comes back to the way your organization is structured, and again, still fully a student here. I've had some good lessons, and I think we're in the middle of implementing some changes, or have recently. But yeah, when you have that in place, that's helpful, because then there's usually people are staying in their lanes. But if you don't, then it's kind of a mess. And even when you do have it, it's hard to stay in your lanes if you're, hey, that's not really my job. So I think that's having the structure is important. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm curious, when you're talking about delegating, like, what is that hidden psychological trap that business owners find themselves in, where like they just can't let go? Like, what is that about, and how have you dealt with that internally?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I deal with that quite a bit. I mean, control equals performance, right? If you take control of it, you feel like the business is going to perform better. And if we don't perform better, then ultimately we don't exist and nobody has a job. So I think for me, I just have to, it comes down to trust, and like, hey, this person has the skill sets to do that. You are actually hurting the business by continuing to do this. We need you up here. Maybe, what's the next step? Where's another location, or what's the better strategy for Darrell to do, rather than, again, maybe doing payroll or doing some maintenance stuff that I should definitely not be doing, but it's been there for too long. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Trust is the key factor for letting go. I think that's what I've seen. Jill might agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same thing, but anything else you've seen, Micah, in that regard that helps?
I would say trust, and then is so basically, I would almost describe it as the opposite. It's fear. So the fear of letting go. What will happen if I'm not the one who, submits payroll this week? I see business owners who say, I'm not a W-2 worker because I want freedom. I want flexibility, but they've never had a vacation, right? So like, what is it? Why do I have fear around letting somebody else do it for 1 week so I can take my family on vacation?
That's true.
I like how you put it, though, in the positive, that it's trust is the thing that's lacking.
Well, yeah, and I think you hit on something that I'd kind of come across in my head. But yeah, if you go on vacation and you find yourself doing any work, you should obviously make note of what you're doing and why you're doing it, because at the end of the day, you clearly can't trust someone else to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Yeah, so I think that's a lesson for myself. Next time I go away, it's like, well, what? And I think I do a pretty decent job of, the place runs itself. It's, if I wasn't here tomorrow, everything would operate. But on the back end, some things would, probably be pretty bumpy, and that's where have everything in place, your policy, your procedures, basically a blueprint of your business. Is extremely helpful. So somebody, and then that gets into valuation and how valuable is your business, and something happens to Darrell, well, what's going to happen? So
yeah, excellent. And this isn't just a point at your business, because I know you've been in it for a long time, and you see this with other businesses and other entrepreneurs as well, I'm sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. The trust is almost at the surface, and beneath that is kind of the fear, right? Like, why don't I trust? Why, even if it's in trusting ourselves, but there is some fear there. What happens if either I don't do this, or it's not done this specific way, or those sorts of questions. Go
ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of fear too, sometimes it's the fear of letting go, or the fear of not having that control, comes also from who we are and our identity and our value and our worth in the organization if we're not actually doing it. And so sometimes it's a reflection of who we are, what we're deriving our value and our worth in the perception of our teams, or even just internally to feel I've got this and I'm the only one that can do this. And, I can be the hero here. So
Yeah.
I see it, all of that kind of intertwined in us, even if it is entrusting that I can give this to somebody adequately, effectively, and bring them into something. We have to trust ourselves in that as well. Like, am I going to be able to hand this over and hand it over well? Sometimes we have this excuse, I think, of like, well, if I want it done, I'm going to do it myself. If I want it done right, I'm going to do it myself. Or it's going to teach me, or it's going to take me longer to teach this than if I just do it. Right? All of those kind of excuses are kind of signals a little bit of, well, these do start to add up. And so the time it's taken you, to continue them, you could have effectively entrusted it to somebody to free you up.
Yeah, that's right. And I think just to add a couple more comments to that. It's really important to be vulnerable, to an extent. And that's obviously risky. But part of what also is hard for all of us is that, our reputation, the company's reputation is on the line. You just want it done right and perfectly every single time. And, for a lot of us, it's almost like having, not almost, it's like having another child. We spend so much time here. We have so much, everything invested. We just want our child to be, perfect. And that's not going to happen. But I think the more we can trust people to help grow your kid up and your business up, that's helpful for everybody. And as long as you have the right surroundings and the framework in place, you're probably going to be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If someone looked under the hood today, I'm curious what systems or structures have allowed you and allowed it to run. You said it kind of runs, and operationally, things wouldn't just stop. So what's been helpful in those systems and structures that have allowed you to not be involved in everything?
Well, people, our employees, we have a phenomenal team. On the leadership side, everybody's been with us for a number of years, and they're all super talented and super passionate climbers, and they've helped develop the systems we have in place. Some of them, some of it's basic stuff, right? How are you, the way you record your meetings, action items, who's responsible for what, but it's everything down to emails, and then whatever's in the email goes into a document that everybody can follow. We're hopefully not duplicating information, because obviously that's a waste. So I think, again, it comes down to people. We have some good software systems, and trust in what we're doing. Our core values they come up all the time. If we have trouble with anything, we usually try to introduce the core values and, hey, what's gone wrong here with this issue or this person? Wow, looks like maybe there's a lack of, gratitude, dedication, pride, and innovation are our 4 core values. And it's like, wow, maybe there could have been more ownership, more pride in that, rather than, hey, we made a mistake and it was, somebody else's issue, or something like that,
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, very helpful.
When you're implementing these systems, Darrell, I want to talk about the value and the value of your business, and also the value of where you're going. How, in that scope, how does the founder dependency quietly limit a company's ability to scale, sell, or transition?
Yeah, in a very big way. I think we talked about it a little bit. The more the company is dependent on me, and hey, what is Darrell going to think about this, or do we need him to sign off of it? It stifles everything. And again, the more I can have the systems in place and trust everybody, then it goes, and I can free myself up, for me personally, to do more of the strategic growth? Where are we going next? Why aren't we looking into this? Those things require discussions that no one else can really have, as they don't have the background or some of the detail on, the investment side, the financing, and that's really only something I can really make the decision on. So yeah. The more I'm in the
your time for the things that are particularly suited, to your sphere.
That's right. And again, if I'm not spending my time there, I'm definitely doing a disservice to everybody else, right? I mean,
because what is it that you're not doing in exchange, right? And where there's opportunity left on the table because you are, embedded somewhere else and you're needed elsewhere. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and it sounds real easy on paper, but it is hard to put in practice.
Sure.
But yeah,
absolutely. I want to talk culture too, because it's evident in what you've built and the team at Whetstone, and just the environment and the feel. Culture is just embedded and just seems prominent as a strength in what it is that you've created there. I'm curious, because oftentimes culture can either trap a founder. I know you don't like that word. Culture can become heavily reliant upon, we'll say it that way, on a founder, or built solely around a founder, or it can liberate, right? It can be liberated by you and what you've created. So what intentional steps have you taken then to build the culture there that truly stands on its own, or, to bolster that with the ability to compound beyond yourself?
Yeah, I think overall, I try to, again, I'm so far from perfect, but I think the culture here it's built on customer service. If you break a business down, you're either selling goods or services. And I think if people forget that, it's a big mistake. And so we try to reinforce that. It's in here to have an experience. And if we don't give them good customer service, we're not doing well, and our business isn't going to do well. So that's number one. In terms of employees, I think I try to really listen. It's a very fine line between getting your work done and using your time wisely, but asking somebody, how was your weekend? How was your day? That's 30 seconds that is, it's honest, it's meaningful, and it goes a long way. At the end of the day, a lot of us are, many of us are right here behind our awesome computers and getting the work done, but you say hello, and that means a lot. And, because it should. It's like everybody's doing their job. Yours happens to be behind a computer most of the time, but be nice, respectful, and those are really the basics. We try to be respectful of everyone, and if there's a problem, we have pretty open line of communication. Yeah,
I'm curious. So you've got the communication, you've got a great team, you've got this sounds like a very positive culture that values the customers and the employees, which is of course the most important. So what is your philosophy with when it comes to like letting go from the things that you're doing and the responsibilities you've had, and maybe you've experienced this? What's your philosophy with letting go but still protecting your vision, like the reason you started this thing?
I don't have a great succinct answer there, because I really, that's where I'm trying to go. I feel like I'm close, but if I see something, and if any of my employees listen to this, they'll probably laugh. But everything down the music, right? Like that's a huge part of customer experience. And if I'm working or I'm out and I hear the song and I'm like, man, this is not a good song right now. Like I would not want to climb or work out to this. Instead of, going up there and saying, hey, change the song, it's kind of like, well, what is our process? Maybe we shouldn't even have to go there. We should have something in place that we would never hear that song. So how much time do I spend on that issue? And there's 15 of those every day. And so the more I can pull back from those, have the systems in place so that question never comes up, the better. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that stuff happens every day.
I think that leads into protecting your vision, because that's
Yes, thank you.
That's that's the core of why you're there and why you're sharing this with the community, right?
That's right. Yeah, thank
You
you
want it to
for
be a certain way, and why not? It should be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I want people to enjoy climbing and have it impact their life the way it did for me. And
Right.
back to the song issue, if it's a slow, sad song or whatever, it's like, this sucks. That's not going to do it. So that small thing makes a big deal, to me.
Yeah.
The building being clean and never running out of towels and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It's important. It all counts. It all matters. The small things do matter when it comes down to service first and creating an experience. Like they're not there just to put one foot in front of the other and go through the motions of this experience. It is all encompassing: the environment, the people, the music, the how they feel when they're there. So
That's right. Yeah. And I think, we talked about just how was your day, that kind of thing. I mean, that's also, it's super genuine, but it's very important for us to do that to our customers because a lot of them are doing the same thing we are, and they're behind their computer, and technology is so annoyingly convenient and in a smart way, but that may be the only interaction they have with anyone else that whole day. It's like, how are you doing? Good. Hey, did you know we have new routes over here? What did you do this weekend? Like that kind of thing. And it's real and genuine. And I think we do a good job doing that. And it's very necessary, in this day.
Absolutely.
Creating a culture that includes your customers.
Yeah.
Can pay dividends for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. They're on the journey with you. You're in it together. And they're those recurring and top customers are a part of championing the compounding effect of that and championing your brand and bringing more like-mindedness of individuals to that environment, to that community, to that experience. They'll create a magnet, essentially, create a magnet out of it. So
that's right.
You're doing a wonderful job. I can speak, personally in testament to being there, climbing there, and having been a customer. So,
well, thank you. Yeah. One of the things that's hard for me is I get frustrated when a member terminates. It's like they came here, they tried climbing, they became a member. What happened? Like and I think I'm a little naive to think that every single person could love climbing as much as me, but that's what I'm going to continue to think. But when someone terminates, whether it's, if they moved away, fine, can't do a whole lot about that, but wasn't climbing enough, couldn't find a climbing partner, whatever it is, that's annoying to me because I feel like we didn't do enough. We didn't help them find their partner. We didn't help educate them on the next step. They just boulder. Why couldn't we introduce them to rope climbing? Whatever, so I think something else that we can always improve on is member retention. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's hidden value within that. Absolutely. More so than looking for number of new memberships. The majority of the value is actually underneath the hood already of those that you've already got their credit card. You've already got their trust there. You've already got them in the door. Right. So a lot of those learnings, absolutely. It's understanding why, and then how do we move further upstream and listen for those pain points of engagement, how often they're coming, right? Is there a clear path and journey from taking them from here to here that, what's kind of the makeup comprising of those who are long-term recurring, long-standing members? How do we make sure that anyone who comes in as new gets here? Right. So that's continually reiterating that process to ensure they're more likely, if we get them here sooner, to come back and to keep coming and to be invested just as much as we're invested in them, like showing that mutual investment together. So retention is half the puzzle.
Is much higher. The cost of retention is lower, and retention just validates what I'm sure you're there for to begin with, and to run a great gym.
Absolutely. Well, excellent. Darrell, for those that are either visiting in the area or those local to Northern Colorado, where is the best place to learn more about Whetstone?
Our website, whetstoneclimbing.com. I mean, that's the simplest way. Stop by. It's we have a pretty good, I think, a pretty thorough video on the website to kind of show you the facility. But stopping by is the best way. And even when you get here, the building's very interesting. It kind of slopes away gradually, and it doesn't look like there's 40-foot tall walls. But once you get in, you can see it. And, yeah.
Was an ice rink before, right? So it's sunken down. I think you walk down in. Yeah.
It is sunken down. Yeah, they did. I don't know that they ever had ice, but they had roller hockey, soccer, everything.
Roller hockey. That's right. It was a rink, I remember at one point. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful. The facility, the environment, the climbing, obviously the experts there to harness your love in the sport. It's all there. So, well, we're so glad that you joined us, Darrell, and shared some of your story today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Darrell.
Yeah, we'll see everyone next time. Thank you for being here.